Entrepreneurship. How often have you come across this word? Very often, my guess. It is the latest buzzword in town. Everybody talks about it because it sounds fancy and glamorous. So how would you define an entrepreneur? Are you one? Well, hold on. Everybody wants to become one. But it's too early to tell. People often confuse entrepreneurs as someone who is independent, thinks of great ideas, dreams big, has the guts and will to achieve that big, someone who fancies his or her own ways of earning rather than depending on some other institution to give them a monthly pay. Some of the Indian businessmen whose names we had talked about earlier are considered entrepreneurs of their time. But believe me, at their age, when they started out, they hardly knew such a word existed that would later go on to describe them, let alone knowing the meaning of it. This word has been only recently added to the Indian dictionary. In fact, when I was a teenager back in the 1990s, I hardly heard this word be pronounced around me, not even in the American movies I watched. Of course, from what we have described as an entrepreneur in the above, that is all part of this word. But do they define this word? No. These are only the after effects of this phenomenon, which, by the way, may vary from person to person. Entrepreneurship is not a personal signature, but a personal phenomenon. A phenomenon that occurs after one has invested a long time in introspection. Let me ask you this.
How many times have you, while going to bed in the night, reflected what activities you had done, or what incidents had occurred to you during the day? How many minutes do you spend thinking deeply about things you do, to yourself, to your friends, to your parents? Do you think before and after doing them? Do you also think while doing them? The sad truth about modernization and industrialization is the fact that people get used to living a granted comfort life where we have a lot of services that save us a lot of time. But most of us hardly spend that saved time in productive thinking. Thinking is the ultimate weapon for success. You can dream big, but to achieve it you need strategies, and for that, you need to think. Sometimes, we act quick before thinking. If it is an absolute emergency, but only if we are lucky enough, will our quick plan work. And after it works, we must at least, then, take the time out to think why it worked, and understand the fundamentals. Introspection helps us understand things at their depth, while quick and wit only helps poke the surface. Entrepreneurs are often represented as people who think fast and act fast, as per their whim. That they are not waiting for anything or anybody to come and help them out, that they can rescue themselves out. But what we miss out often is to understand that entrepreneurs who have created meaningful businesses would often immerse themselves in deep thinking, and then they would come up with a plan and the strategy to achieve that plan.
And that, dear teenagers, comes from self-introspection. Do you know why sadhus and yogis are often considered wise men as per Indian culture? It is because they spend most of their time in deep self-reflection, which enhances their absolute intellectual capabilities as a thinker. This enables them to see and think beyond what a normal human could perceive. And thus, we end up calling them tons wiser than us. Thinking has the power to transform personalities. It is the path to self-enlightenment. Remember Valmiki and Asoka from Indian history textbooks? As the legend goes, these were men who radically transformed into different personalities after deep self-reflection and self-enlightenment.
When you start to think deeply about yourself and the things around you, that is when you realize who you really are, what it is that you are meant to do in life, and how you will go about achieving it. Until then, it will be just like following the herd. Just because the herd believes that entrepreneurs are glamorous, so we try to make it our life's goal, without even understanding and acknowledging what lies ahead of us. Planning and strategy are the best tools of successful people. Of course, We should not chase after a glamorous definition only because our ego has pushed us back into collectivism. It is not something to become, but something that transcends automatically into your life, once you are true to yourself, and fearlessly do things that give your life meaning.
All the great people we remember today, from scientists, to social workers, to businessmen, to political leaders, they have all been through immense self-reflection to understand their lives, and the lives of those around them. They were all, commonly, great thinkers.
Another thing to be mindful of is that every person is born unique and there is no one tag of entrepreneur versus non-entrepreneur. Being an entrepreneur itself is no big merit. What you do with the understanding of it is of ultimate significance. People working as a part-timer at a local bar, people working white-collar jobs at a factory, people working desk jobs in the call centers, or people working in 7-storied buildings from 9 to 5, are all equally capable of understanding the significance of their lives and taking action. The only difference will be whether they have tried to introspect and understand it, and if yes, how they choose to live it.
Once they figure it out, they can do tons, even in the smallest ways, even in the most boring places, and would certainly be taking action, either consciously or subconsciously.